Well, listen, we're officially gonna. I know we a few minutes. It's like it's already begun. Hey, Kat. Hello to everyone who is joining us
Morning.
live. Hey, for everyone who joins the replay. We're super excited. All summer at Take the Lead, we've been having the opportunity to convene our 2019 and 2020 cohorts of the 50 Women Can Change the World in Journalism graduates. We have over 100 women who come through the programs. We've had many women who've come through many sessions throughout the last few weeks, and we're excited for more to come. So please stay tuned, and including our live in-person experience happening October 18th, August 18th, all over the country. And so we'll give more details there, and you'll see more coming in Slack. But today we've got a special family member. We don't even say guest. This is not a guest speaker. This is a powerful conversation, and we're so excited that what we have talked about and what we all, I'm Sharia. I am a 2020 cohort member. And so I came through this program and now excited to support the organization in convening both cohorts. And so one of the things as women who go through this program, first of all, you're already a powerful woman to say yes to a leadership program like 50 Women Can Change the World. So salute to every woman who has said yes. And then inside of the program, it's designed for these powerful women who may or may not have known each other to come together and create. And so, part of that, each cohort is charged with creating a strategic action plan as a cohort project. And in 2019, the first year there was ever a journalism cohort convened, 50 women all over the country and world convened powerful women journalists, and they realized there was a hole, there was a space where there was not a spotlight on the women. We talk about women in journalism and then also leveraging the insight at a higher level. And so they wanted to be a part of creating what it looked like to center women. And with that, the 2019 cohort created Women Do News. I'm not going to tell you a lot about it because we have the woman who has two of the women who have been powerful and instrumental in ensuring that that work that started in 2019 through global pandemics, through massive resets in our industry, massive resets in the world. Here we are in 2021, and that organization is still going. That organization is still raising funds. That mission is still going strong. And so we're excited to have two powerful women who are here. And so we've had a few questions that have come over that I'll ask as well for women who weren't able to attend, but we're excited to hear about this conversation. And so we're excited to welcome Angilee and Kat Rollins, who are both here. And I want to tell you a little bit about Angilee before, because inside of the 50 Women Can and Take the Lead community, she is looked at as a leader and as someone you want to listen to. But I also want to tell you a little bit about how she shows up outside of our Zoom room and our rooms inside of the world. So Angilee walks that fine line and does it powerfully as both an editor and entrepreneur, which often those are two different skill sets. So to find your way through both is pretty spectacular. She spent 6 years as a founding editor of Global Nation, which is PRI's the world's coverage of immigration in the US, where in 1 year she brought 50 new contributors to the program. And so what we know in that one sentence is she's someone who's not only taking up her own space, sharing stories, but she's also making sure she's bringing others along. And so I want to slow down, but I just Angilee is so gracious. I didn't want to miss not celebrating and really offering how impactful she's already been prior to taking on the incredible leadership she's done with Women Do News. But we're already over a couple of minutes and I want us to get into the conversation. So welcome everyone who is here. Good to see you all. And Angilee, welcome, welcome, welcome. So of course there's a lot we can talk to you about. We want this to be a conversation, so everyone feel free, ask questions as comments come. But first, Angilee, thank you for continuing something that started. So jump in from 2019 when you were in 50 Women Can Change the World in Journalism. You were here as a member of the Take the Lead cohort for journalism. Talk about that experience because we have a few women who were in that cohort. We have women who are watching who are like, tell me a little bit more. So tell us about how Women Do News got started inside of that experience for you.
Thank you. That was a really, really generous introduction, Sharia. I appreciate it. There is sort of a story here about the last couple of years that I've been synthesizing in my head and struggling to tell, actually. And so I appreciate you all because this has kind of been my opportunity to think about that and how I want to tell that story. So thank you for sort of being my first set of listeners on this. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we can have a conversation that is thought provoking about what leadership in news can look like. So actually, I kind of want to assure you, you wanted me to start in 2019. I kind of want to back up just a little bit, um, and just say, I didn't apply to the 50 Women Can program to become a leader, which I know sounds a little odd because this organization is called Take the Lead. But the truth is, in some ways, and I say this like, not from a place of ego, but I already knew I was a leader in some ways. I had managed and led newsroom projects, coverage, teams. I knew I could lead on the content side in news. And I knew I could lead on sort of the planning and business side as well. This was not, I felt pretty comfortable with that. Um, I joined 50 Women Can because I couldn't see a path forward for myself. I couldn't see a way that I could reach my potential in those roles. Um, I had just decided to leave a system that has extremely deep inequities, that either demanded my sanity, my health, my well-being in exchange for leadership roles or success, or it prevented me from reaching my potential overall. And I think for women in the news industry, particularly for women of color, you probably know what I'm talking about. The demands that are placed on you when you join institutions that are historically exclusionary are very high. The extra work, the uncompensated work is real. Um, and I'll be really honest too, even years out of my time in national media, I still struggle to see a path forward for myself as a leader. So when I joined Take the Lead and I met this amazing cohort, and then I say that not lightly at all, the cohort that was convened in 2019 was really an amazing group, and I'm so glad to see Kat here as well, my sensei in leadership, really. So with this amazing cohort, I'll be honest again, I still struggled. I still struggled to see what power could look like, what leadership could look like. The power tools made sense to me in theory. I understood them intellectually, but they also felt like they made the same demands on my psyche and my heart as the industry that I was coming from. It felt like in some ways that they had all the same inequities and problems. After experiencing and ingesting really discriminatory practices for my whole career, it was really hard to swallow the idea or the lesson that I could, if I just took advantage of chaos, I could move ahead. It was really hard for me to say, yeah, that's what I need to do, is take advantage of this chaos that has taken so much from me. It was like the idea, embrace the controversy, felt like, to me at the time, just swallow the pain, swallow it like a pill, no matter how poisonous it is. Embracing controversy for a person of color in America at the moment right now is not an easy thing to ask for. So, these lessons were really difficult for me. These exhortations, they felt similar to uncompensated, unrecognized labor of being a woman of color in a newsroom that is historically white. So I struggled. I really did. And I know I'm saying that repeatedly, but it is the truth. Surely I could not simply be expected to sort of run the game, to learn how to play in this game that, was built. Every ounce of it was built initially and was growing out of this system that was built to exclude people like me and people like the reporters and the communities I worked with that I really wanted to serve. So, from HR to capital investments to algorithms. I felt like this was a system that was stacked against me, and I had to find a way to move forward and do the work that I thought was important for these communities. So back to our cohort. Gloria felt challenged us to think of a way that we could build change as a group. And that part of the work did resonate with me because it didn't feel like, Angilee, you need to swallow all of these things in order to move ahead and dismantle them. The work as a cohort felt to me more equitable, that we could distribute that work in a way that didn't demand that any of us, give up our nights and weekends or our mental health or our feeling of self-worth. It was a really powerful message. But as you can imagine, when you have 50 women who are really accomplished and have visions for their life, or building visions for their life and their career, this particular group of 50 women did not agree at all on what was the right path forward, how we could harness our power together. There were divisions in the group. Some women thought we should be lifting up each other in our cohort, really focusing on that, and some did not. But Kat Rowlands, who is here, of course, in her amazing way, raised up an idea that she had been working on for years, which was really the origin of Women Do News. It's a really simple idea. Wikipedia does not represent women well. Neither does it represent non-white people well. Its authorship is largely male. And as such, the biographies, the articles that you see in Wikipedia skew male, no matter the contributions of women. So our goal was really simple. Let's start adding some articles about women journalists who deserve to be sort of part of our historical record, who deserve to be raised up in the ways that Wikipedia does raise people up. It was really simple, actually. So, Emily Gertz and Emily Gertz is a really amazing person who has probably the most experience on Wikipedia itself in our group. We built out this sort of technical scheme, the series of spreadsheets and APIs to make that work go easier for people who aren't familiar with Wikipedia, to help make it easier for people to contribute content to the platform. And with Jareen Imam and Jeanette Woods and Kat, of course, and several other people in the cohort, we built out this structure and ran our first edit-a-thon in New York City. Ariana and Gloria were really generous as well in their time and connections to get us space and a small budget to host the first edit-a-thon, which was in New York City. And it was really cool. I mean, it was a really great group. It was a group of volunteers. It was fun. And I think, the process of adding content to Wikipedia is really slow. So, of course, there were people swarming around us. We're like, how many articles did you get? How many more women are on Wikipedia now? And it takes time. It takes time for articles to run through sort of editorial process. It takes time for people to write. It takes a lot of time. So it's slow. Even to this day, 2 years later, we have added 30 articles to Wikipedia, which, for some people, they're like, that's not enough. But we think it's a start. And beyond just adding articles to Wikipedia, it gave a lot of people an idea of how this system works. How does it exclude women? Why? What are the processes that need to change? Because in some ways, Wikipedia is just a reflection of the inequities of our society. If we have, for example, mostly male media critics, we will have mostly men journalists being profiled. And that is the content upon which Wikipedia will draw. So it's a long system, and with Wikipedia and the way internet algorithms work, understanding that system is also a big part of what the project is about. So, this is a session about leadership, and I want to talk a little bit about my role in this because, like I said, this was sort of Kat Rowland's brainchild, and Emily brought a lot of technical expertise, and Doreen and Jeanette, and we have this amazing group that was initially a planning committee. Now it's a board. That has done great work, and actually many women not from our cohort joined as well, so I want to be really clear about that too. So the leadership is really distributed. My role initially, honestly, I took notes. I really did. I took notes for the group. I got everybody organized so that they could drop in and out as their schedule allowed and catch up. That was really my main goal, because when you're working with people who are volunteering, who are really busy, you gotta make it easy for them. You have to take the pressure off that they have to show up for everything, whether they can afford to or not. And I mean afford in money sense, but also just in time, childcare, all the things that we all do in our lives. So I wanted to help make it easy for people to show up when they could, when it felt right for them, not just pressure that they have to show up or they'll fall off the trail of what we're doing. So I took notes. I was working with this group of brilliant women, and we have one man on our board, which actually I hope we get more, because this is not just women's problem, but it's a group of brilliant people. And so I saw my role as simply getting us organized and helping to make it fun. Which, as an editor in a newsroom covering immigration, I don't know. I always like to try to make it a joy. I never want meetings or things to be painful. I don't want people to be like, oh God, I gotta go to that call or that meeting. I always try to make it pleasant for people at the very least, even when subject matter is difficult or the goals are difficult. But I never wanted this to feel like a burden, because as women, we have so many burdens already in terms of taking care of our communities and our families and the people around us. I never wanted this to feel like one more burden on people who really, deserve help and compensation and leadership roles. So that's why. And the other reason I really thought of my leadership role in this that way is because I wanted to help build a program that had equity. If we grew really fast based on volunteer work and required that people who took leadership in this program give up lots of time to help move it quickly, there's people who simply could not be leaders in Women Do News. And disproportionately, those people would be women of color. Because we struggle to make a living in our industry often. So, this comes from personal experience and also just knowing who is out there and who would be really good at this. I didn't want to set us off on a footing of growth first that excluded participation, that excluded the ability for women who could not afford the time or the money, because time is money, to take on leadership roles. So, we grew it that way. You did collaborative work. I used the process of consensus decision making, so it's not like formal democracy, but it's something I've learned from colleagues over the years. I have one particular colleague who runs an organization called the South Asian Digital Archive, really South Asian American Digital Archive, a really amazing organization. And watching him build collaborations helped me think about this. What does consensus decision making look like for groups that are building something together? It was relatively non-hierarchical. I think a lot of people think of the leader, the person who starts the meeting or takes notes or makes sure we go through the agenda, as the leader. I do not see it that way. I see myself as sort of the person who helps organize people's brilliance and help them move forward, distributing leadership power among our board. And it was very collaborative. So, we grew slowly. We didn't have money. We were all kind of working volunteer, but we had structure and we had buy-in. And to me, that was the most valuable thing starting out, that let me know that, it is worthwhile to do this. I mean, we could have raised money to simply give it away to people who we wanted to support to stay in our industry. That would have been a perfectly fine use of funds. And, I always grapple with this, that, when you start a nonprofit of any kind, sometimes your operational costs and things would actually do better just going straight to the people and the communities you're trying to support. So we try to stay lean, and really think about what's valuable to those who work within this structure. Kat's leadership came up again at the beginning of this year. And before that, her and Jareen in particular began to map out a structured process to create a board and a mission and a more formalized group that we could then gain fiscal sponsorship with the organization that Kat founded, the Bay City News Foundation. And that they have been really amazing in offering their support and cheering on this group. And giving us sort of the structure we need to get off the ground as an organization, and frankly take in money and disperse money, which is of course such a big hurdle when you don't know how much money you're going to have year to year. So Kat really pushed that through. She used her own personal resources and the resources of the foundation because we were mission aligned. We want to build programming that is impactful and helps to change the systems that we're in, not just the sort of symptoms of those systems. So early this year, we became a project of Bay City News Foundation, which makes us a bona fide, certified nonprofit. Bay City, it's not quite a fiscal sponsorship, but it's similar. And so now, of course, when you formalize in that way, a lot of people ask very often, what's next? How much money do you need? How are we going to raise it? I think one of the really amazing things about this group is that we're really strategic in how we think about things. What is important is not so much, we're not trying to build a group of volunteers who are engaging in feminist discourse on Twitter. Many of us have to do that already, just for being ourselves. But that's not the goal of Women Do News. What we want to focus on is the work. We want to help bring in people who are going to do the work of lifting up, bringing into our historical record and into our internet ecosystem women journalists who really should be there in prominent places. And we are looking for people who want to do that work because they think it's important. So, I think of Women Do News as sponsorship, right? I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but there's like a difference between mentorship and sponsorship, right? Mentors help you gain skills. Sponsors lift you up without you asking. And that is what Women Do News is about. Very much so. We are sponsoring women, living and who have passed on, who need to be part of our lexicon, who need to be seen as important figures in our industry. And as far as like ambition goes, yeah, we want to keep adding articles. We want to keep running edit-a-thons with partner organizations, and we're looking at all of the, we had a really successful, we've had 2 edit-a-thons. One was, our most recent was with Asian American Journalists Association, which was really cool. And that, of course, we were like really adapting for digital virtual edit-a-thons, which is a different beast than sitting in a room together for 5 hours. But it was really great. And, we just want to do the work, and we want to do it in a healthy way that allows participation across the board, that helps people think of themselves as part of a larger system that they can affect change in. And we want to do it in a way that brings joy to those who participate as well. There's something about doing this work that I think people don't realize and don't talk about enough in terms of leadership. So I wrote a series of articles about the end of the war in Sri Lanka. And I remember this is going somewhere, I promise. And I remember when I came back, people would invite me to sit on panels and things, and what they wanted was like the war stories. They wanted the like, you know, intrepid journalist goes out into a conflict zone and this is the amazing story about that journalist. I've never been particularly interested in those narratives, um, in part because they often leave out a very particular point about doing this kind of work, and that is the fact that war is boring. When you are in a conflict zone where there are battles taking place, you spend a lot of time sitting around waiting for opportunities to do your reporting. You spend a lot of time doing things on the phone because it's simply not safe to get out into the world. Um, there are moments, maybe this is the carpe the chaos lesson, there are moments where things get hot, but by and large, war is boring. And not that, and I don't like war metaphors for things either. So I'm not like saying that Women Do News is fighting a war. I'm not particularly interested in that kind of metaphor. But I will say that in some ways, leadership of this kind of group, leadership of a group that is trying to do something to work on big systemic issues, is boring. You are taking on the things that require patience, that require plugging away, that require finding partners and colleagues and like-minded individuals who will put in the work. One thing I hesitate about often with this organization is that there are a lot of people who simply want to talk about the issue of Wikipedia. I am really interested in finding people who want to write, who want to edit. And that's, a lot of people would rather embrace the controversy and the chaos first. For me, I want to embrace the work first. And that's not to say I'm really happy to be here talking to this group and I'm really happy to talk about the work. But again, it is always about that work. And the work is not being on Twitter and being famous. The work is writing a sentence that 12 strangers are going to edit, which is not glamorous, but it's really fulfilling, and it's really, it really helps you to feel like you can change the system. So I definitely want to have a conversation and answer any of your questions about what we're doing. Just stepping back again, the pandemic has also taught me a lot about like all the ways that women in particular are asked to swallow all of the things that need to be done in the world. We are asked to accomplish so much, and it makes being part of our industry difficult. So I decided that I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't participate in that game. I would participate in the game that allowed people to come from where they are, assume leadership roles, and just do the work as they can, without pressure. And so far it's worked pretty well because we just have a steady stream of activity. Maybe there are ways to make it faster. Probably there are. Maybe there are ways to grow our organization really quickly, and certainly there are. But we are doing strategically what we can when we can, and I feel really good about that. So that's sort of my leadership journey with this particular organization. Carpe the chaos to me can mean step back. How do you seize chaos? Sometimes it means you step back from it and don't let it swallow you whole. Embracing controversy can be shifting the conversation to the meaningful things that you want to see happen rather than just being in controversy for the sake of being in controversy or for, getting lots of eyeballs to raise money. I think there are different ways to think about it. And above all, you could probably guess the lesson that I took from my time in Take the Lead the most was know your history. So you guys could probably guess why. So yeah, with that, I'd love to just talk about it. I hope
Yes.
I hope this jogs some ideas. Maybe there are things you want to push back on and challenge. Maybe you think I'm not type A enough about women do news, and I'd love to hear that too. To which case, of course, I'll say join the board. But let's talk about it.
Well, first, Angilee, thank you so much for being a guest, right? For since you got to this planet, and thank you for really catching us all up on the not just the work of Women Do News, but the heart. I know for me, my heart has been stirred a couple of times as you've been sharing. So just thank you and hello to everyone who's already joined. Hello to everyone else. Let's give each other a hey. Good to see you all wherever you are. Good to see you all. Angelee's waving. Good to see you all. Hey, Daniela, Megan. Hello, hello. And a special shout out to Kat, right? Because I think sometimes, even in sort of me not being a member of the 2019 class and formulating questions and the conversation, it was very like, okay, like, what are the steps versus it was much more of a collective. And so I just love hearing the organic ways, but also the community, right? So thank you, Kat, for being an instrumental part. We know the society we live in, there still are, someone had to pay for that website for us to go over to Women Do News and donate and sign up for. And we see that Kat's daughter is on the site as well. So that was pretty cool, Kat. The conversation, Angelie, particularly in this moment, I think I know for a lot of us, women who are watching, who are like, okay, I do want to do more. I do want to be a part of what it would take. Talk about, how do we join an editathon? I know you can sign up on the site if you want to choose to edit. So the sort of that first step of like how we can support in that way, but also the larger, how much what are the resources it takes like to have a Wikipedia bio, or a profile on there? What are some of those sort of technical pieces, but also the ways we can jump in?
Yeah. So, so joining this sort of movement's real easy. Womendonews.org. Give us your email address. We're not selling it. We're not marketing. Uh, Basically, when you give us our email address, you'll get something in your inbox that explains how to make a nomination, which is also very simple. Um, so you can nominate somebody who you think should be on Wikipedia. We don't do any gatekeeping around that. All we do is organize. So that name will go on the appropriate list, whether they're ready to have an article, whether they have an article already that needs to be edited, or if they have an article. And again, we use like the APIs, we use algorithms to decide. So if an article is complete, for example, it won't go on our list. According to Wikipedia's standards, it won't go on our list for editing, for example. And as we go through, as we figure out more about the women who are being nominated, we also move some nominations into a category we call needs citations. So some women simply have not been written about enough to warrant a Wikipedia article. So Wikipedia is not a place to put original information or information shared by that woman journalist herself. It is a place where you need third party citations. So things written about that woman journalist, not by her, not by her employer. So, some women may be extremely deserving of a Wikipedia article, but they simply have not been written about or their story has not been told by somebody else. So those people we put in a different bucket for other types of programming we want to design in the future about getting more, getting these women journalists on the radar of pop culture critics, of media analysts, of documentary filmmakers, all the people who tell stories of journalists. So that's kind of how the nominations work. And then it gives you really clear instructions. Here is how you write an article. Here is how you edit an article. Here's how you add. We have photo section that we're still kind of working out. It's a little crunchier, but we do have a process for that. And then the group itself helps to make sure that article is good, meaning good in terms of this will stand up to all of the mostly male editors on Wikipedia. We are going to watch this article. We are going to argue for it if people fight over it. And so far, that process, again, right, it makes it slower, but the articles that we've done so far have survived, which a lot of people who work in Wikipedia know that many articles get taken down because they're considered not notable enough for Wikipedia by some editors. So, by going through this process, we really try hard to support the work that everybody's doing. And then in terms of how long it takes, I mean, really, once you get used to it, you can write Wikipedia articles pretty quickly, because they're not very creative. They're pretty straightforward. And pretty dispassionate. So if you have citations, if you have those third party items written about a woman, writing an article can be pretty quick. What's even quicker is making an edit. So if you get used to working in the Wikipedia system, making an edit is a really easy way to also contribute, which could take 5 to 10 minutes even. Or even just sharing new articles as they're done can also help. In terms of money, like I guess we have very small annual operating costs so far. We're only a couple months old, so we're still ironing that out. But it's web. We have some administrative help from Arya Malula, who's a really amazing project manager for us, and of course BCNF is subsidizing some of this work as well. So eventually, we hope that we can cover those costs for BCNSF as well. But Kat and her team has been really generous so far. So, but in terms of money, right, when we get back to in person, let's say there's a journalism conference and we host an editathon. We need to pay the way for the people who run that editathon. So we're doing that, right now we do that collaboratively with the organizations that host us. And that's travel costs. We just are working on ways to offer stipends as well. Again, equity and allowing people to participate is really important for us, whether or not they have a lot of money or time or not. So we are working on those systems, but each conference, let's say these are 4 or 5 day editathons, we need like 5-6K total. And that number I think will change over the years as our programming changes, but that's mostly what we're trying to do. So if we want to get on the docket next year for 5 different conferences, you can do the math. This is the kind of money we need to raise or work collaboratively to do. And I want to be really clear too that none of this money goes to volunteers who write in Wikipedia. That would actually be against their terms and something we don't do. Nobody is paid to write articles in Wikipedia. This is really, really important. What we do use the funds for is organizing, training, and running events.
Thank you. And of course, we want to open it up for anyone else who has questions. Feel free to post in the chat, or if you'd like to come off mute or raise your hand, feel free. And I do have one topic that I think is important. And it kind of came up last week, and it's a larger conversation. And I didn't notice it until I was in the 2020 cohort last year around some of the similarities we have as women in journalism. And one of the things often, traditionally we were, and I'll speak for myself, I was groomed, and I know many journalists, I know I can't speak for everyone, were groomed that we weren't the story. We were groomed that we're, that sort of, we hold the mic, we're not the mic, oh, it's not my point. And now we're in an era where, what you're talking about, right? To have those citations, you needed to be cited you needed to not just be the woman behind the camera telling everybody else's story, but you needed to at some point been a story and been featured somewhere to then use those citations. So I'm just curious for you, Angilee, seeing the behind the scenes of what it takes for us to highlight and amplify the work of women journalists. What do you see for women who are in journalism to what should we be doing? And both from a personal level, but also I think this conversation just made me more intentional if I'm doing any spotlights on women to spotlight women journalists more, to tell the stories more. If we're doing 30 powerful women, put a woman journalist, even though our training says, oh, she's we don't typically the news. I see that being a very clear barrier of how some of us may have been groomed and also the erasure that can create down the line.
Yeah. I mean, it's a combination, right? It's like we've learned to step back, not just as women, but as journalists. But I mean, the truth is that we're working on some pretty low hanging fruit here. It's not like, like some of the women we've added in Wikipedia, some of the women the volunteers have written about have won Pulitzers, and literally they're on like a 2-person team where the man who won the Pulitzer has an article, but the woman who is on that team does not. So it's not like, it's not even. I think I'm of the mindset that it like I'm going to say this, but I want everybody to be aggressive about what's right for them. But I'm of the mindset that it is not your problem. It is not your problem if media critics have a blind spot and write mostly about men in news who are doing something impactful in the world. As an individual, it is not your problem. Like, I would not tell somebody who really wants to be a journalist, make sure people are writing about you, right? It's like, again, right? It's the work. What I would say is join a program like Women Do News so that systemically people are thinking about this. Suggest people who should be written about, people who you mentor as you move forward. Is that like entirely self-serving? It's not a self-serving thing because you're not going out and saying, please write about me. That said, yeah, you should talk about your work. Certainly. Don't shy away when somebody asks you to talk about your work from claiming credit. The other thing I would say that actually hurts a lot of women in this sphere is bylines or titles in newsrooms. A lot of women are left off of credits for big projects or investigations or really impactful work, even though maybe they were the last editor on the team who caught really really important stuff. Maybe they were the viz person or the data person or even the social media person these days is often a woman, and they get left off of credits all the time. So in that way, I would say internally, demand you are credited internally. Demand you are to be in the bylines, because otherwise, even people who do want to write about the journalists who broke the story won't even know that you were one of them.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm like, Ranjani, definitely we're going to make some good tips out of this conversation to share with the larger community around this piece. So just thank you, Angilee. We have time for a few more questions if anyone has questions or even just topics that you'd like to raise. And I do just want to, again, give a special acknowledgement, Kat, to everyone who's here. And thank you, Kat, for being instrumental in sort of helping to being bringing your ideas to the table, but also the other side of really, the sort of insurance and resources and opportunity flow this way.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and piggyback on what Angilee was talking about in a couple of points. One is that I'm thrilled to see this get off the ground, and I really love that this is something that's growing organically, because we're not pushing through in an aggressive way that alienates people. We're actually welcoming in contributors who can give whatever they can because they believe in the mission and the empowerment of women who deserve that recognition. So that's all really positive, I think, and I credit everyone in the group with taking that on and giving what they can and making this successful. But one thing I also wanted to mention is that recently somebody came to me and asked my opinion about a job applicant. And they said, on paper, she looks fantastic. She's done all this work. She's won amazing prizes, including a Pulitzer. But we don't understand why she doesn't brag about herself. And I said, well, please don't hold that against her. That's not her personality. That's not her way of operating in the world. And obviously, it has contributed to her success to be that kind of low key person who's approachable and can have a more quiet leadership style. But don't deny her a job and a promotion and a leadership level position just because she doesn't brag about herself. And it reminded me that that's really at the heart of what we are doing. We're taking on the work of lifting women who deserve credit up in Wikipedia so that they don't have to brag about themselves. It's obvious that they are accomplished, but they need the rest of us to lift them up and to highlight their work and to write those profiles so that there is a citation so that we can support a Wikipedia article. So just a little anecdote there about how this plays out and how there is often a bias against people who aren't shouting about themselves, and we can really make a difference by helping to do this work.
Wow. Thanks so much. We can't wait. I'm like listening to. I'm a little mind. That was a little mind boggling. I don't know if anybody else will wait because usually it's like don't be so braggadocious, and now it's like well she doesn't brag much. What's wrong? I'm sorry. Just but grateful for organizations like Women Do News that we got you covered. Any other questions or shares before we share more highlights of what's to come? And Angelee, I have a question. Well, I see Ariana came off mute. Go ahead and jump in.
I was just wondering, the fact that you've done so much on a volunteer basis is incredible. And incredible and disturbing at the same time because you're doing such important work. I mean, you and all of you who are doing this. Um, and so I was wondering, what are the prospects for getting paid for the time you put in? I know you were saying not paid for the writing, but paid for all the other time you put in. I know there are other organizations who are doing work not specifically for journalism, but I know there's Women in Red or Women, whatever they're called, and there may be more. And I was wondering, are they getting funding? How what is the long-term prospect for actually getting paid for this work? And are funders thinking, oh, they're already doing the work, we don't need to fund them, they're doing it volunteer anyway, which of course is always the problem with women, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see the future in this?
Well, I think we already have a paid project manager who, kind of really helps move us forward and takes care of all the sort of administrative things, as well as kind of keeps us organized. She also writes our newsletter most of the time, which you can see when you sign up. So, I mean, that's like another way to also increase her visibility. But I think over time, the role of the volunteer board will shift as some of these functions become, paid contractor or staff positions as we move forward. How long that takes, I don't know. In some ways, yeah, we put in a lot of hours, but we also we also are very cognizant of everybody's limits, especially in the pandemic. There was nothing like the board has to come to every call or not be part of the board. We take really good notes so that people can participate asynchronously and really do espouse that come as you are mentality. The prospects, I mean, we're always talking about equity as well, which is why we're working on sort of a stipend structure for editathons, particularly that particular work of running those programs. Stipends for the board or for somebody like me, for building spreadsheets and things. We haven't quite gotten there, but maybe one day that will be part of our programming. For now, we're going a piece at a time. Yeah, I think building a structure that is equitable, and that also, again, right, we are built on a consensus decision making model, which takes time but is a way to get buy-in. So building those structures take time. We don't rush it. We talk about something and maybe it takes 3 months for it to get to a vote, but we take our time with it so everybody understands what's happening and can weigh in. And decide, is this the right direction for us? So again, like, this is always that balance, right? Yeah, I'm an ambitious person naturally, so I'm like, yeah, let's make this an organization where everybody's paid for everything they do. But I think the reason why Women Do News works the way it does is because we are moving at the speed of everybody's lives and time and care here. So I wouldn't trade that for, the ability to disperse money. Money came afterwards. And down the line, maybe somebody else will become board chair and disagree with that philosophy and sort of push conversations in a different direction, and that's totally natural too.
Got it. Okay. Well, question. How long does it take to organize a virtual edit-a-thon? And because I would like to sign up and invite whoever else inside of the Take the Lead. I think we as a community, it'd be great if we could look to add this as maybe and just start as an annual thing, like at least, and we know August is where the program concluded. It's just in honor of what has been generated. How can we maybe, what would it take? And we can have that conversation offline, but I just wanted to float it here to see if the women here would be interested if we did a Saturday, I sound like you said 5 hour shift. Could we do a four, and we would, work with Take the Lead to say, hey, could we send the women who sign up, lunch just so we can be together, but also continue to move this work forward. So I guess,
As we develop sort of our virtual convenings, it's a little bit more asynchronous.
okay,
People, we haven't quite found that people want to just hang out on a Zoom, for 5 hours straight and work. It's more like we have sort of office hours or something. But we also found that this works really well on the sidelines of conferences and the
okay,
sidelines of convenings, other people's convenings. That's actually been really efficient and impactful for us. So organizations like AAJA have been really great. We did, our second editathon was on the sidelines of the Take the Lead conference itself, which ASU Cronkite School helped to host. And that's been really helpful for us because our goal is to bring more people into the fold of understanding what this is all about and then to do the work, which can happen, the work can happen anytime.
got
That
it.
learning process is what the editathons are about. The work is ongoing. You'll see when you sign up for the email that, every week we're sending like, here are some assignments that are open. If you want to spend half an hour this weekend, it would be great, like whatever. This is just something we can do. And we have a Slack channel for people where people kind of get help or ask questions to each other about how to do things. So yeah, I think if there are events going on where the event organizers themselves would love to host an editathon alongside it, um, that's kind of our sweet spot and how we're planning for 2022. God,
Okay.
2022, geez, it's already here.
This is perfect. So what we'll do, and we're about to,
Oh, one other thing, Sharia.
yeah.
Please think outside of May. I know everybody loves Women's History Month. We got so many requests in May, and it's like, women exist outside of May. You can do things not in Women's History Month.
Well, this is great insight for all of us. And I think what I'm hearing as we look at takeaways and just better integrating and being committed to supporting the organization is knowing if we're going to women's conferences, events, how do we continue to bring this work along? And even as we sign up one by one, but also organize and say, hey, here's some conferences I'm a part of that I think I'd love to be a part of that conversation. And speaking of live events, we have our Take the Lead live event coming August 18th. So I think, I think that'll be a space we'll be sure to share information about Women Do News there. And also, Angilee, I'll talk with you offline to see any potential of how much could we have some, opportunity for women to learn more at these events, but also there any, I don't know if it's the right arena for editathon, but we at least can continue that conversation. Any
I'll say
last,
we've also been on multiple sort of panels and one-off events, that are 1 hour, 2 hours. And, Jareen Imam and Jeanette Woods have been really amazing about that. Actually, they're wonderful speakers. We also have Andrew Lee on our board, who's kind of a Wikipedia OG and really amazing person as well, who really, and really a lot of people on the board could do this. And that's also been really helpful to help introduce the concept, even if we don't do a full-on editathon for a particular organization.
got it. Got it. Well, thanks again for jumping in and sharing. I think all of us have a lot to kind of think about after this conversation. And also, the thank you for being a part to your earlier comment of the structural moving forward, right? Because I am a woman who got to know and meet Betsy Wade through Jaws, and so to see, and actually the same day I got my first my book contract was the same day I broke up with the guy I'd been dating for 7 years, and the same day I had drinks with Betsy Wade down at 72nd Street. So it was like one of those days I don't remember, but in such a roller coaster. She was such a bright light to me, and I'm so grateful for Women Do News for protecting the legacy of women like her, even though she's no longer on the planet, that now she lives forever in such a global resource bank. So just thank you all for that
Yeah.
work. And I'm excited for all of us to continue to hold space for our own story. So
One
thank
thing about Betsy Wade is that we only got that article up the day after she passed,
you.
which I think about a lot. And I
Hmm.
think we should work to do that kind of thing. There's Wikipedia or other ways, but we should work to uplift women when they can see it.
Let me ask you this. Is it because the obituary gave the citations needed for the Wikipedia page?
We had a draft about her actually,
Okay,
and someone picked it up when she passed and finished it.
got it. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Angilee, do you guys have one for Kay Mills?
Uh, so we have like 300 nominations. So
Oh, sorry. I don't want to put you on the spot. Joe, she's the other sort of Jaws mothers, and she died very unexpectedly. And yeah, she had
definitely nominate her, and then we can go through that review process to see where she is in the process of having a Wikipedia article.
Okay.
And I think, and I mean, obviously, but even in that, I think through the process, right? Because Megan, and we can talk offline, like, what does it look like for us to write some pieces around Kay, so that when they go to, review, there we have some of those citations. Like, here's some, pieces out around. So, okay, I know we got to wrap, but this has just been a very powerful conversation. And thank you, Angilee. Thank you, Kat. Thanks each of you. We're not over yet. I want to pull up the slide and do a quick screen share to share more updates of what's coming up. So thank you all for a powerful conversation. And so, well, clearly, we I could have clicked to what we needed. Okay. So thank you all for your patience. This is looking ahead. So today, clearly, we've had a very powerful conversation around what does it look like to strategically share power and tell our stories. And so Angilee said her favorite power tool was knowing your history, and she's also a part of protecting our history. So thank you for that. And we are excited to continue the programming here for graduates of the 50 Women Can Change the World in Journalism cohorts. Next week, we have a powerful session with Christina Wright, who is a journalist and who is a corporate trainer in the space of diversity and inclusion. And so she's specifically talking around how do we leverage diverse voices inside of the newsroom. And so we're excited for that conversation. That'll be at 12 p.m. So our regular time next week. And then in 2 weeks on August 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern, we are really honored to have some very powerful women. As we talked about today, often women in journalism, we aren't always the story ourselves. And we have 5 powerful women who became a global story when they did not quietly take some discriminatory practices as newswomen and anchor women at New York One. And so they filed suit. And so they will be joining all together for our Equity for Women in Journalism. Let me make sure you all can see slides, a conversation. So we are honored that they'll be joining us. And we're also excited to say not only is every woman inside of our community welcome, but we also are encouraging you to invite a woman in journalism friend, whether that's a mentor of yours, whether that's a mentee of yours. So you'll see that in the email recap that we are opening it up to you plus a guest to RSVP. And so if you have women in your life who like, this is a powerful conversation, but we'll be talking about equity in journalism. We'll be talking about ageism inside of the industry. And we'll be talking about the power of women coming together. Because as mentioned, this is 5 women who all came together and filed suit as one. And so that will be on August 11th at 7 p.m. And last but certainly not least, we are excited to share with you more information on our August 18th 50 Women Can Connect experience. And so right now we are super excited to host each and every woman. And so how is that going to work? We're all over the country. So we will be having confirmed already 2 in-person experiences. One for women who are in the New York City area. We will be convening at Glass Ceiling in Nomad, and that will be, and I'll drop the link. Ranjani, can you drop the link in the chat for the invite link? I forgot to have that handy. And so you'll be able to RSVP and you'll get all of this in your email. We just wanted to share the information here first. And so we'll be having our live event in New York. And we also will be having a live event in Arizona at Gloria Felt's home if you are in the Arizona Scottsdale area. And then we also are hosting other areas. And so for women, if you are not, you're like, hey, I'm in a city where there's not, you will be getting an email with women who are in your area to see if you are interested in connecting in person. And if not, we definitely will be having a virtual experience that will be happening for 1 hour on that day from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern. And actually, I got that wrong, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be having the virtual option. And for every member in our cohort, once you RSVP, we want to cover your first drink with the powerful woman. So you will be getting a code for a Starbucks coffee on Take the Lead, just to let you know that we are honored to be in this community with you. And we want to continue to allow the powerful and amazing energy that's in this community to be something that is contagious. And so you'll be getting more info there. But again, if you're in New York or Arizona, we'll be having live experiences. If you're in some of the cities where we have a few more members, that's DC, the Bay Area, Hey Cat, LA, if you might be interested, we'd love to work with a few members who might be interested in coordinating a small get together with a few members in your area. And so stay tuned for more information there, and we will be sending that over your way. So let me stop my screen share. And if you have any questions at this point, feel free to come off mute now and ask us, or feel free to reply. Oh,
Actually, Sharia,
I saw your message.
Yeah, because Felicia can't get into the Zoom for the Academy session.
Right.
We started 3 minutes ago.
All right, we're heading off. Thank you all each. You're looking for our
Bye,
email.
everyone.
Thank you so much for a great time, and save those dates. All right, see you later. Thanks, ladies.